UFC 310 is over, but not its craze. Let's discuss the full card from the start to the end and see what's next for the biggest winners and losers of the card. I'm the Indian accent guy, and you are on the fight book. Kennedy Nzechukwu kicks off the show by dropping Bresky and finishes him with 9 seconds left in the first round. His move up to the heavyweight division now seems to be a good decision with back-to-back stoppage wins this year. Lucas Bresky, on the other hand, lost second straight and won only 1 out of his 6 UFC fights. UFC veteran Clay Guida and rising talent Chase Hooper faced off with a 17-year age difference, the largest in modern UFC history. Believe the record 23 years age gap was set at UFC 4 in 1994 between 28-year-old Royce Gracie and 51-year-old Ron Van Cleef, who also holds the record for the oldest UFC fighter. Chase Hooper, making big moves in the lightweight division, submits Clay Guida in the first round with an armbar. His decision to move up a division is also doing better for him, as it was his 4th straight win in the already tough lightweight division. Following his win, Hooper says he is open to fight Jim Miller next. Guida, on the other hand, lost 3rd straight. Michael Chiesa, always having a tight squeeze, submits Max Griffin in the 3rd round and becomes the first to submit him in 31 fights. Chiesa ties Kenny Florian for the 2nd most rear naked chokes in the UFC history and now eyes to become the first one on the list, surpassing Damian Maia. In the next fight, Joshua Wang defeated Cody Durden via unanimous decision. With 2nd straight win, he moves up to 5-1 in the UFC, proving he's ready for big fights. Wang revealed he wants to carry his country Myanmar flag into the octagon, and the UFC is doing their part to get the flag approved. Durden, on the other hand, revealed he fractured his orbital in the 2nd round and couldn't see anything after. Eric Anders closes the early preliminary card by beating Chris Weidman via TKO with strikes in the final seconds of round 2. It was his 2nd straight victory, while Weidman is now 1-2 after coming back from the injury. Brian Battle kicks off the prelims with a split decision win over Randy Brown, breaking his 3-fight win streak. Despite having a weight advantage and coming as a big favorite, he couldn't deliver. Still, a win is a win, which extends his unbeaten streak to 5 and ups his UFC record to 7-1. Movsar Evloev remains undefeated with a 29-28 unanimous decision victory. Evloev says he now hopes to receive a title shot following his victory over a former champion. He says he wants his shot at Ilia Topuria but won't beg for it and will be ready to fight anyone in 2 months' time if the promotion wants him to. Let me tell you a fun fact about him, that he refuses to eat sugar until he becomes champion. Aljamain Sterling responds to his loss and he's in good spirits, getting healed up and planning to climb the ladder again. Vicente Luque locks up the Anaconda early and scores the first round submission win over Themba Gorimbo to get back into the win column, breaking Gorimbo's 4-fight win streak. Luque's Anaconda choke is the fastest of its kind in UFC history. He calls for Jorge Masvidal in Miami. If you don't know, Masvidal is unretired already. He has announced he is returning on UFC's Miami card in Q2 of 2025 and UFC is looking for a good opponent for him. Dominic Reyes makes it 2 in a row with a finish over Anthony Smith to close the prelims. Far too many unanswered strikes from Smith, and the referee gave him latitude to show him something. Eventually, it is just too much to allow the fight to keep going, and the referee stops the fight with seconds remaining in the 2nd round. After the 2nd straight loss, Anthony Smith says this fight was probably his last fight, but he wants to think about it. Dominic Reyes reacts to the emotional win over Anthony Smith and says Smith put his hands down during the fight and told him to punch him in the face so he can feel something. Dana White also reacts on it and supports Smith's retirement decision and says that Anthony Smith, Chris Weidman and Clay Guida should all retire following their bouts tonight. After being winless in 4 straight, Du Hochui looked absolutely amazing in getting second straight victory, starting a new win streak. Not only did his striking look brilliant, his defense has improved so much. He dominates and finishes Nate Landwehr in round 3 to start the man card with a bang. Chui then calls out Bryce Mitchell after his win, as he thinks if he and Bryce go to the octagon, it's going to be a banger for the fans. Bryce Mitchell in the very next fight comes back into the win column after one of the coldest knockouts and defeats Kron Gracie in the start of round 3. He maintained his composure on the ground and knocked Gracie out with a slam and then ground elbows after 2 rounds of him pulling guard. Bryce, in his post-fight interview, apologized to Joe Rogan for calling him stupid for the dismissal of flat earth theories and then accepts the Chewy call-out as he believes that's what people wanna see. Gracie, on the other hand, lost 3rd straight and he is winless since 2019 after making a successful UFC debut. Ciryl Gane earns a controversial split decision over Alexander Volkov in their rematch. His 2nd straight win breaks Volkov's 4-fight win streak. Gane went to leave the octagon immediately after being declared the winner against Volkov, but was brought back into the octagon for his post-fight interview. Gane explains he stormed out of the octagon because of his ankle injury he suffered in the start of the fight and not because he disagrees with the judges. Alexander Volkov was furious over the bullshit decision and said he doesn't understand why judges did not give him the nod. He comments on a female judge, Adaliade Bird, and says maybe she liked Gane's body more. The boss Dana White also felt that Alexander Volkov was robbed and apologized to him after the fight. White said the head of the commission spoke to him and provided an explanation on why Gane got the nod. He said that they felt the 2nd round was very close and both guys got rocked. People's main event, Shavkat Rakhmonov vs Ian Machado Garry, gave some of the moments no one expected. Just like his previous fights, Garry followed the defensive game plan which caused him 2 rounds, leading to him adapting the offensive approach. Offensive Garry won 2 out of the next 3 rounds, giving mini heart attacks to Shavkat fans in the final round. But Shavkat manages to take down offensive Garry in round 4 and wins a unanimous 48-47 decision. He remains undefeated with his first win by decision, and at 19-0, he and Movsar Evloev both now have the most wins of any undefeated fighter on the UFC roster. Shavkat losing his 100% finish rate hurts, but imagine if Garry landed the submission in the 5th. Garry, by the way, had a wardrobe malfunction in round 3, but it was great to see a backup pair of shorts readily available. Garry says in his post-event interview that he doesn't feel like he lost tonight despite his record saying otherwise. He says he made Shavkat Rakhmonov look effing human and there was nothing Shavkat brought and won by opinion. Garry congratulates Shavkat and vows to defeat him in the future rematch. Dana White also comments on the fight and says that Shavkat vs Garry didn't play out in the way that he thought it would, but we saw a lot out of both guys and he is glad that it was 5 rounds. Shavkat Rakhmonov also reacts on his win and says he expected more of himself. He also believes a rematch against Ian Machado Garry is bound to happen in the future. By the way, after the fight, Shavkat wanted the octagon face-off with Bilal Muhammad and he got it after some struggle from Bilal as the security was not letting him in because they didn't know Bilal was the champ. Shavkat wants his shot at UFC welterweight champion in the spring and believes he will continue his finishing streak which was just broken. Bilal's primary focus, on the other hand, is feeling 100% again, and then he is happy to discuss a return date. He just doesn't want to compete during Ramadan in March. Opening odds for their fight via Bet Online puts Rakhmonov as 1-2 favorite. The 24th fighter to compete for a UFC championship in their first UFC bout, Kai Asakura, is submitted by the champion Alexandre Pantoja in round 2. Pantoja's rear naked choke over Kai Asakura was his fifth inside the UFC. Pantoja says in his post-fight speech that fighting in the UFC is a different level. Pantoja tied Demetrius Johnson and Joseph Benavidez for most wins in the flyweight history with 13. He also tied Johnson and Davison Figueiredo for the most finishes in flyweight history with 7. Pantoja challenges the recently retired Demetrius Johnson to come back and face him to prove he is the flyweight GOAT. Pantoja says it's not about money, it's about seeing who is the best of the best. Guess we can put a bow on that one, as Dana also showed his interest in the fight, but Demetrius has been very clear that he has no intentions to fight again. Dana White mentions it was Asakura's first time fighting in a cage and he came flying out of the gates, and Pantoja then put the heat on him and dominated. He wishes that we would have gotten 3 more rounds of what we saw. White says that Rizin's boss Sakakibara told him that many of their champions want to become the first to win titles in both promotions, and he would love to bring over more Rizin fighters to fight in the UFC. White recalls the rich MMA history in Japan and hopes to do a fight night in Japan soon. By the way, we got a bonus fight at UFC 310 as well. Merab Dvalishvili and Aljamain Sterling's team was going back after his loss and got into a fight with a fan who talked some shit. White says these sort of things happen in a fight business and that Merab is that guy when it comes to getting into altercations with people that disrespects him. He says that they had to seat Merab in an area where he wouldn't get into those situations, still he did. White calls Merab his mini Strickland without the mouth and says that it's going to cost Merab a lot of money if he keeps fighting with fans. And that's a wrap. With the hope you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, consider subscribing if you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comment section on the event, and then do whatever you want.